Today we're talking about the 7Artisans 35mm 0.95. But first, if you're new to the channel, my name is Anson, and on this channel we talk about filmmaking, specifically budget gear, tutorials, and a behind the scenes look at the projects that I'm working on. So if that's something you're into, consider subscribing. Now before I get too far into it, I do want to mention that 7Artisans has sent me this lens, but they have not requested I say anything specifically about this lens, and are pretty open about me saying anything that I want when it comes to these reviews. Now I've had my eye on this lens for some time because it's a freaking 0.95 lens for under $250. So yes, extremely interested in it. And so breaking down this lens, we're going to talk about image quality, build quality, and my overall thoughts / who I think could be useful for. And let's start with image quality. Now there are a couple of things that help this lens stand out for me. One is a 35mm range, because with micro four thirds, it's a little bit more telephoto. On the Pocket 4K, it's close to like a 70mm. On the original Pocket camera, it's closer to like a 105, somewhere around there between like 95 and 105. So needless to say, if you're gonna use it on the OG Pocket camera, you might wanna use it with a gimbal, which I did take it out with a gimbal, but I ended up doing some handheld shots, and you'll see whether I regretted that or not. Now, if you follow the channel for a while, you know that I love more telephoto shots. It's a little bit more isolating, and isolation with a character can sometimes give you that dreamy, more focused look and often be seen as cinematic. But with 35mm on micro four thirds, you have some natural lens compression, and then mixed in with my next favorite feature on the image quality, the 0.95, you have some amazing subject isolation. So with that, let's talk about low light performance. With that 0.95 aperture, you can let in a lot of light. So not only is it a bokeh beast, but it's really a low light beast as well. And I'll be honest, it's been raining here for like the last couple weeks, and so the B-roll of those low light shots were pretty much what I've been doing for the last 2 weeks, which is either watching TV or playing video games. No, spending time with my daughter, but when she's asleep, you know what I mean. Something I did for that B-roll is I literally turned off every light that I could in that surrounding area around my living room and just turned the TV on. Now it is a larger TV and it was very bright, and so it created a lot of light, but having one light source in the pitch black with a micro four thirds camera and getting some of the shots that I got was pretty impressive. Now I did pump up the Pocket 4K at some points to 3200 ISO, but that being said, this captured some amazing low light shots. Now the thing that impressed me about this is that at 0.95, it still does retain a lot of sharpness. It's not like Sigma sharp or something like that, but there is still a lot of details in that 0.95. Now, one thing I will say about the 0.95 is I did notice there was some chromatic aberration. There was a short that I did for YouTube, and in that short, there was a lot of like high contrast parts in there, and I did notice some serious chromatic aberration, but honestly, that's up to style, whether you like chromatic aberration or not. There are some films and some TV shows that I've watched recently where there's a ton of chromatic aberration. And so really that just comes down to stylistic choice, if that's something you're into or not, but know that there will be some chromatic aberration when you're super wide open. But again, it's a 0.95 lens for $250, so you gotta expect something. Okay, so that's my thoughts on image quality. What about build quality? And this is where I am not surprised either. 7Artisans does a really good job in building their lenses. This is a very sturdy, I don't know what material it is exactly, but it feels like all metal or all aluminum. But this is a very sturdy lens. It is surprisingly very heavy. I put this on the original Pocket camera and put it on one of my favorite gimbals that I use for the original Pocket camera. It's meant for smaller cameras, and I actually had to get a counterweight because of this lens. But it's surprisingly a little bit heavy, and that's okay. I'm welcome to that. If you've heard me say before, heavier rigs create a little bit more stabilization, and so having a little bit of a heavier lens on something that I'm doing handheld is very welcomed. Now I have put a follow focus gear on this lens. I'll try to find the size that I'm using and put that in the description below as well. But that's what I'm using so I can pull or rack focus with the Nucleus Nano, which was awesome. Everything is super quality. The only thing that really bothers me is because the focusing ring is so close to the mount. Depending on your camera or depending on how you put it on your camera, it's harder to turn and lock onto the mount of your camera because you're kind of turning the focus ring. That's just a nitpicking thing though. But otherwise, super clear markers, just really good quality. Again, I'm not surprised. 7Artisans does an amazing job in building their lenses. So image quality on par, build quality on par. With that, what are my overall thoughts and who would I recommend this for? So first, I would absolutely recommend this lens. It's a $250 lens, so it's not gonna break the bank and you can get some serious low light. If you're working with micro four thirds and a small sensor that micro four thirds offers, this gives you the ability to get some shallow depth of field with this ultra wide aperture lens. And so that's really helpful with these types of cameras. If you need something that's super low light, maybe you're filming The Walking Dead, which they're in their last season, and that makes me sad. RIP. But maybe you're filming something that's super low light. This is going to get you where you need to go without spending a ton of money. If you're on a budget and you're trying to do some serious low light filmmaking, this is going to be the option. And so that's where it's appealing, is at this price, you really, and honestly, that's the appealing part about 7Artisans in general. They're quality lenses for not a ton of money, and this lens is no different. I would absolutely recommend to check out the 35mm 0.95. 0.95. Jeez. So that's it for me. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you did enjoy this video, make sure to give it a like. If you're digging the overall content from the channel, consider subscribing. And as always, go and find your journey. Go embrace life. Stay safe. Be happy. Support each other. Wash those hands, and I'll see you here next time. Peace.